Hi everyone, welcome to a Warhammer 3 tier list, where today we are looking at the Greenskins unit roster. Just like the other tier lists we were done, we are only looking at the units of the Greenskins, not any unique units, not any lords or heroes. That'll be saved for their own separate tier list. At the bottom tier, we got the squig food, which is basically don't recruit. They're not worth it. Literally feed them to your squigs. Disappoints, so they have below what they should be. We got average, which is they're doing exactly what they need to do. Above average, they hit above their weight class, they'll outperform their general role. A plus is you want to recruit these units in your army or have them, and doom stacks is self-explanatory. You can doom stack guys. Now the first unit we're going to look at is the goblins with sword and shield. They were a kind of recently FLC unit, I believe. I could be wrong. Honestly, squig food. It's nice they add goblins with sword and shield, but they are just goblins and not very particularly good. Whereas the regular goblins, are also just a meat shield. They do have the anti-large, which is better than nothing. They still kind of disappoint. Honestly, don't recruit goblins for hopefully past turn 10. You're going to be in trouble. The next unit is the Goblin Fanatics, and they are a lot better than your regular goblins. However, they're still goblins. Could be in the disappoint section. Obviously they are better. It's just I don't think they hit where they should. I mean, they're meat shield. They're junk anyways. Next is the regular orc boys, and they're actually a pretty decent sword and shield infantry in Warhammer 3 anyway. The only thing that they don't have going for them is their melee attack, melee defense is a little lower. However, they hit like a truck, and you can kind of spam these guys early on, and you'll be fine. Same with the orc boys with the spear and shield. That were another addition to the army. I will put them kind of behind them because that gets some better anti-large infantry than your silly little goblins, at least. Next is the nasty Skulkers. I said that name right. Yeah, Skulkers. They do have some nice things about them. The only problem is they're more of an ambush unit, and they don't really have the speed for that. They do have some AP, which is nice. I just don't find them particularly useful. I try to use these guys, and I can't use them. It's probably on my part, but they're a disappointment to me. Just like many things in life. Next is the Night Goblins of Night Goblin Fanatics. And these guys, I think, are actually really good. I think they hit above their weight class, and the only reason I think they do is if you look at what they have here compared to Night Goblins and the Fanatics, is they have a nice little ability. It's their Spinning Loons, which is 3 uses of a Vortex. That will absolutely shred everything. The only problem is they really don't care where they're swinging them big balls around. They will do as much damage to the enemy as they will with you. So I recommend bringing like maybe a couple of these guys in, just sending it into an enemy blob, and they will absolutely destroy anything. I mean, it's only 3 uses, but you can get a lot of damage done with those 3 uses if you do. And the next is the just regular Night Goblin Fanatics Regiment Renown, or I'm sorry, the Warlord's Boys. And they do have armor sundering. That's kind of the only thing that makes them unique. So it's minus 30 armor. They've got the Vanguard deploy, like the regular goblins, night goblins. I just don't find the Regiment Renown variant really that much better. I mean, I guess if they're going against stores, that's fine, but and I would they're okay as an emergency unit, I guess, if you need something out there. Next is the Savage Orcs, and I also think these guys hit above their weight class. Some AI factions, not naming names, will kind of make Doom stacks these, and they'll kind of work pretty well in the early game. The only reason why he's not in a Doom stack now is because late game you start seeing all the magical units and a lot better range as well. What makes the Savage Boys really unique is they have 25 physical resistance as well as frenzy, but they have no armor, no shields, and obviously in the campaigns they can get juiced up quite a bit. But you know, I'll put them above the fanatics. They're a really good unit to have. I don't know if I would say you would absolutely need them because once again they don't have any shields, they don't have any armor, and once they touch something magical, they're kind of gonna flop over and die. Next is the Night Goblin Fanatics Renown unit, and they're called the 8 Peak Loonies, and they're pretty much unbreakable. They got the poison attacks, same exact stats pretty much at them. And honestly, since they're an unbreakable unit, they're not gonna rout and run away like want to run away on you. And honestly, I would kind of put them in average just because of that unbreakable status. Nothing too crazy. The Orc Boy Big Guns, I personally like. The only issue is they don't have a shield and they're really fat and slow. They're kind of weaker to range. Once they get into melee combat, they will absolutely. I think they're just above average. Not by much. They're really pushing it. It's kind of same with the Savage Orc Big Guns. They're the same exact thing, except they got that nice resistance built into them with Frenzy. No armor once again. No shield. Same with these guys, though. So honestly, I'll put these guys above average as well. In front of the other big ones. Honestly, I would kind of prefer recruiting the Savage Orc Big Guns over the regular Savage I rather recruit the Savage Orc Big Guns over regular Big Guns, but sometimes they're a little harder to get. And next is the Black Orcs with shields. These are going to be your more elite infantry. They are also kind of a newer unit orc roster through a DLC. I would honestly put these guys at A tier. They're really nice to have. They are very, very tanky, and they also have a unique ability called Immovable Bulwark, which boosts their melee defense, but subtracts from their melee attacks. They can't really hit as much. But when you have that on, it's plus 24 melee defense on a unit that already has 42. Like, a lot of units are just going to struggle to get through them, so they're really good at holding line. But I do, in this case, a lot of times I find the great weapon variants kind of a little weaker than the sword and shield. In this case, I actually find them stronger because they are a great frontline holder. However, there's really no reason to hold the frontline. The Greenskin roster really doesn't give enough reason to do it. And then they also have a unique ability called Unstoppable Choppas, which is a base weapon damage plus 50% AP plus 50% melee defense minus 24. At 32, that kind of hits it pretty hard, but you are pretty much destroying everything in sight. I would put these guys in the Doom stack, except they're really, really slow and they don't have shields. That's pretty much the only reason. If these guys were like a little faster or even had like really crappy shields, I would put them in Doom stack. The Regiment Renowned variant of them, of the Crimson Killas, the only difference is they don't have the AP here. They got rid of their AP, but they have a bonus versus infantry at 72 with the Unstoppable Choppas, so they do still get that at least some AP. And they also get immovable bulwark at the same time. So they get literally the best of both worlds. Sadly, you can't recruit more than these guys. I wish you could, because that's like one of the best use, I would say. Something that can both buff their attack and defense. You put these guys at the very end of A tier. Once you unlock the Crimson Killers, you should grab them. And next is kind of the archers. The Greenskin archers aren't really good, let's be honest. I do find the regular goblin archers to kind of be average. Maybe a little less than average, but they're not bad units to recruit. They do kind of have a low range at 115. 14 missile strength is about normal, with lots of ammunition at 120 entities. Weak against armor, and they have poor leadership, of course, because they're goblins. And the Night Goblins are the exact same overall. They do get juiced up stats with poison attacks as well. Still low range. They hit slightly harder. I'm gonna put them in average as well, just above them. You know, if you get Night Goblin arrows, don't recruit Goblin arrows. And the Orc Boy arrows, or sorry, I hate these names. Orc Arrow Boys. I absolutely hate these names. They're kind of interesting. So they had decent melee stats, but really poor accuracy. A lot harder hitting ammunition, a little less ammunition, a lot more range. The only problem is they only have 90 entities, so technically they kind of, I would say, have less damage in that regards, because you got 40 more goblins shooting arrows at 15 missile strength than 90 at 18. It's kind of arguable. I kind of find them disappointing in my opinion. I wouldn't say necessarily don't feed them to squigs. It's really kind of a, I don't find useful. I mean, if they get into melee, they do okay, but I don't want my archer time. And the Savage Orc Arrow Boys are kind of a little different. They do have that physical resistance. They have the Frenzy as well, so they're really good at fighting. I'm just gonna put them just above average. It's not really a unit I want to throw into combat, but if I need to throw into combat, they'll absolutely love it. And the Night Goblin Archers Regiment of Renown, which is the Rusty Arrows. God, I hate these names. Pretty much the only difference is they just get better stacks and they get armored stun range, which is nothing too crazy. I mean, their range, they hit armor a little bit better. I would probably kind of put these guys above the other archers in that regards. And next is the Night Goblins Fanatics variant, which they're exact same, except they get their spinning looms. So if you get close to them, they're gonna throw their big balls at you. And kind of because of that, I'm gonna put them above average, because you know you could get 1 to 3 of these guys, and if they get into combat, they can pop their ability, do lots of damage, but just above average. That ability kind of pushes them over. And Ruglung's Orcs, which are the or Arrow Boys variant, is really good actually. They got way better range, really good missile strength, and just really good melee stats. They also get a shield too with 70 armor. Honestly, I would put these guys at Doomstack. I wish you could recruit more, but you can't. I would put them at A tier. They are a really good unit and a really scary unit to fight against and have. I just wish there were more of them, because they don't get that accuracy debuff. They're heavily armored with a shield, much like the dwarves, and really good at fighting. Next is the Wolf Riders with bow and arrows, so they're kind of your skirmisher cav. I don't personally like any Wolf Riders. I feel like they're really weak. They're pretty fast, I'll give them that, but I definitely think you should feed them to squigs, and the reason why is the Goblin Spider Riders with a bow and arrow are much better. And why I say that is they have just better stats overall. Yes, they have less speed, but 78 speed is still really good for especially smallish cavalry. I mean, if you're gonna use them like to chase down entities, they're still gonna do the job. They both get the Vanguard deploy. This one gets firing while moving, which is, okay. I personally, I'm sorry, I take that back. They both get firing while moving, which is really nice. I just find them a little better. They also have poison attacks as opposed to these guys. They're just better overall. So like for a skirmisher cav, honestly, I'll kind of put them in back. Next is the Wolf Chariots, and I absolutely hate Chariots. I really do. Now the Wolf Chariots, they do have a weapon strength, a bonus versus infantry, lots of ammunition. I mean, lots of ammunition. Honestly, that's probably what pushes them up. I think that's a bug, because 48 ammunition, that's kind of crazy. And especially with the missile strength of 50, they do get 12, so they do get a little less than there. I personally don't have a preference with these, but I also see why they kind of hit above their weight class, because I have Lord Sniped Homegrown with these guys before, and it's very satisfying because these guys have pretty much infinite ammo for some ungodly reason. And the next is the Regiment Renowned variant for the Wolf Riders. They do got a little bit better stats. They do have AP missile strength, which is very nice, as well as immunity psychology. That's all. Yeah, that's all. And I mean, the AP is pretty nice. I would say that, maybe puts them above into disappointment, but not by much. And next is the Spider Rider Archer variant. And get a little better stats. They do actually get regeneration, which is nice. So when you tap them, they can run away pretty fast and heal. But they're kind of low health, so I don't really think they benefit from that personally. I'm kind of good putting the disappointing section because as a regiment renown, you kind of want them to perform better than your average. It's an okay emergency unit to have, but it doesn't make them any special. And of course, the Tifrabas, God, I hate these names. Nothing too crazy or different. They do get Vanguard deploy, which is pretty nice. A lot more missile strength and better stats overall. The Vanguard deploy is definitely pretty good. I would probably put them above their own just because that Vanguard deploy, you now have a Chariot unit in the back lines wreaking havoc with infinite ammunition and really high damaging ammunition. Next is just the regular Wolf Riders. These guys aren't ranged. Squig food. The Goblin Riders or Spider Riders, kind of the same thing. They, they're fast. Got a little bit better melee stats, if not equal. Let me check you. Yeah, they got a little bit better melee stats, so you're gonna kind of chase them around. Poison attacks, as well as a kind of weak shield. I would personally go with the range, because I personally think you're going to get more bang for your buck with them. And once you're out of ammunition, you're going to use them as a skirmishing cav or as a chasing routing units cav. That's just kind of my preference because these guys are really squishy. You don't really want them to combat; they're just going to melt. And the Regiment Renowned variant of the Wolf Riders, they get they get positive sphere. That's pretty much it. And nothing special. Once again, they're squig food in my opinion. Next is the Squig Hoppers. Let me make sure I got the one in your picture. The Night Goblin Squig Hoppers. I absolutely love this. They have poison attacks, bonus for infantry, armor piercing. They have Vanguard deploy. They are a squig unit, which automatically makes them a lot better, and immune to psychology. And you're pretty fast of the cavalry, 82 speed. I use squig hoppers pretty much throughout most of my campaigns. I'm gonna say they're A tier. These squig hoppers never disappoint. And next is the Orc Boys. Orc Boar Boys? The best way I can kind of compare them is they're like melee cav Empire Knights. They do hit quite hard. They do have armor piercing on them, which is nice. They're kind of slow. I know it says 70 speed, but it doesn't feel like 70 speed. And they are just one of the slowest units. They do hit quite hard. They got that armor piercing. So honestly, I would kind of put these guys at average. Sometimes they perform like really well. Sometimes they don't. But they're not bad units to have either. They do exactly what they do. And the Savage Orc Boar Boys, same thing, except they have more physical resistance as well as that Frenzy. Which I think that Frenzy kind of puts them up a tier. I would put them above average for that reason. they are kind of forfeiting the armor, or a little bit more armor and a shield. They do the same exact weapon damage, but you know they also have better stats as well. And they're considered a shock cav as well. I don't know why they're considered a shock cav because they got those guys as shock cav, but what do I know? The Squig Hoppers Renown, if we want to look at those really quick, better stats, perform the exact same. The only really difference I could see here, they got a natural 25% missile resistance, so it's going to even be hard to kill these guys out of range. And I don't even think they're weak to a range because they're not that big of a unit anyways, but I'm going to put them in A tier just because I love them. And the Orc Boar Chariots, really good chariot unit. I hate chariots. They do perform really well. They got bonus for Infantry as well as AP. And they're kind of a nightmare to fight against. You know, I still don't like chariots because I feel like they get stuck a lot. But I'm gonna kind of put these guys at high above average, just kind of for that reason. I would put them at A tier because I don't particularly like chariots, so that's like strictly my preference. In the Orc Boar Boys Big Guns, did I say that right? Orc Boar Boys Big Guns. They're more of the shock cav of the Orc Boys. They do got the armor piercing as well as anti-large, which is very nice. A lot better stats overall. You know, still super slow. I wouldn't really consider these guys shock cav though. But you know, you send these after our cav units, they're more than likely gonna win. I will put them above average for that. And of course, you have the Savage Orc Boy variant, same exact thing, except they have the physical resistance is a frenzy and a little bit more weapon strength and charge. So just same exact thing. I would use either or really. Maybe put these guys in front because that physical resistance is nice. And the Renowned variant, which is just the Orc Boys Big Guns Broken Tusks mob. Yep, that's what they're named. They just got better stats. They also have encouraged. That's pretty much it. Nothing too crazy. A little bit better armor too, it seems. I mean, 15 armor, I would, whatever. You know, they do have that encouraged trait, which is nice. Keep those goblins in line. But overall, same exact stats. I wouldn't really. A good emergency unit to have, I suppose. And next is the Snotling Pump Wagons. These are kind of like a chariot unit, except they're a little less clunky, which is nice. They got a nasty charge that has a cooldown every time you charge, but it makes them just plow through everything. Think of like the Bretonnian Diamond Wedge formation, but just for 12 goblins on a wagon. They do got AP as well as bonus versus infantry, and some missile strength as well. Really good unit to have. I'm gonna kind of put these guys as average because there is a lot of variance in the roster, and I'm gonna try to separate them as best I could. The Goblin Rock Lobber, just basically a catapult. Nothing special. I would say it's just pretty much average. Average instant count, you know, 4. Do have some armor piercing as well. Next is the Goblin Bolt Thrower. This is kind of a weird unit. I did some testing with this unit because I've been having arguments with people on my Discord about whether or not this is like one of the best bolt throwing units or even catapult units if you want to go that far. And I noticed that when you buy one unit of these in your army, like their performance is meh. You know, they kind of suffer from pretty bad accuracy. The only difference is they get 8. And it's armor piercing and anti-large, so they can kind of snipe other artillery pieces and win because there's so many of them. Their range is a little low. They do get some decent ammunition though. But I noticed that like if you recruit 3 of these and you kind of treat them like a shotgun, nothing could touch these guys. And I would say honestly for that reason you would probably put them at like A tier, just because, or A plus tier, sorry, just because they perform so well, but you gotta recruit like 3 of them to get that performance. And as individual units, like really meh. They're fairly cheap too, so I'm gonna kind of put them at above average for that reason because there's 8 of them. A plus if you want to, get like 3 of them. I don't think they're doom stackable. I really haven't tested their doom stack ability. Feel like their greatest weakness would be, stalking units or potentially some sneaky cavalry. I gotta do some testing personally. Next is the Logie Bogey Spore Spludas, which is a snotling pump wagon, which they explode. Giant exploding spores. It's kind of a really fun unit to use. I'm gonna put them next to the snotling pump. Actually, I will put them at above average because the explosion magic is the best magic. And next is the snotling pump wagons with flappas. And the only difference is they just are an upgraded version. They still have the same exact stats, or I'm sorry, better stats with the same ability. So I would put these at above average. And next is the rock clobber variant, which is called the Hammer of Gork. They get blinded, which is melee defense minus 24, melee attack minus 24, and accuracy minus 30, as well as AE. So honestly, it's actually a really good throw in before like you get your front lines charging. If you can do it, I would put these guys pretty much still at average. They're not crazy. They're not really a game changer catapult. The stats are really nice. I don't think they really perform better with those stats. It's arguable. I maybe would put them at above average. The next is the Regiment Renown variant of the bolt throwers. And they get, better stats. They do have poison this time, though, as well as snipe and vanguard deploy. So they are very, very sneaky people. The only problem is, at least in this game for me, the AI always knows where you are, even with snipe and with vanguard deploy and hidden. I really don't think they perform any better, especially since they're a cheap unit to have. I mean, the poison is nice. I think they're kind of a huge disappointment. I mean, you need an emergency artillery piece, you can use it, but you can get these pretty early. So I'm not really concerned with that. I mean, the Vanguard deploy is nice. I just don't think it pushes up there. And next is the wagon, the next best wagon, which is called the Snotling Pump Wagon with the spiky rollers. This time they also cause fear, but you want to look at the differences. They do have way better weapon strength, a little less of a charge, armor sundering melee attacks, better leadership, and better armor. So not only are they doing minus 30 armor, but they also got the AP in both infantry, so they're going to kind of shred everything. I would pretty much put these in your army if you can get them. I wouldn't say they're situational, really, that they're going to hit everything pretty hard. Doom Dire catapults, I don't like them. What is kind of cool is you can control these manually. They have a good range. You can kind of cheese that and do a little bit more range. They have okay armor piercing. I would prefer kind of getting, goblin bolt throwers or even the lock lobbers because they're only a 17 missile strength difference and they're much cheaper. I would personally kind of feed these to your squigs. It's a fun unit. I don't think it's personally a good. Next is the squig herd. And this is kind of a unit you can get pretty early to game, and I honestly think it's such a great unit. They are definitely an above average unit, and they also got a couple nice abilities attached to them. They do have the armor piercing anti-infantry. They got the squigs go wild, which is plus 12 leadership when in range, when in presence of an enemy presence in ability range. That's so weird. They got immunity psychology, and they're considered a squig. They do have rampage, which kind of sucks. So if you enter the battle with them already damaged, they're gonna rampage like crazy. So my only tip with that would be to put them in a far back, let them rampage a little bit, and they should be back to normal. And you got your regular trolls, nothing too crazy. You know, they do have the regeneration as well as the cause fear and the E, which is always nice. You know, they're average to me. I mean, they're trolls. I'm not necessarily scared of them when I see them. Actually, you know, I take that back. I thought these trolls were better. Nah, they disappoint me because of the poor leadership. I thought these. I thought I got confused. I thought this was the Narino trolls that absolutely suck. But you know, yeah, these trolls, their poor leadership kind of sucks. They're okay at melee combat, but that leadership hurts them. The or the river trolls are a little bit better melee stats. They do have the overwhelming odor, which is melee attack -6 for all. A little bit just better melee stats, but they still offer that poor leadership. Kind of personally think they do hit average this time because of that -6 melee attack. It's just you kind of want to keep them as a frontline support. If they're going to charge it by themselves, they're going to break. Next is the Mangler squigs, which are just like two squigs tied to each other, or two squigs tied to each other with a chain. And it's such a fun animation. I love this unit. Extremely good. The only problem is you get, I think it's like 4. Yeah, it's 4 per unit. They're considered unbreakable. They do explode when they die, which is really nice. They also have the Feral Rage, so keep in mind. But bonus for infantry, armor piercing, really good weapon strength. I would personally use a lot of these. It's just they need support. Next is the Stone Trolls. Kind of next upgrade for the Trolls. Only difference is really they don't have anything actually. They just have better stats. A little bit less melee defense. A little bit more armor. A lot more armor. You know, semi-armor. I don't think they're crazy. I think, you know, you can kind of trade between the two. You got -6 melee attack and 1, but you have one that has different stats, better armor. I still think they're average, in my opinion. The River Trolls Renown, which is the Swamp Things, just, you know, better stats overall, nothing too crazy. They do have poison attacks, which is nice. As well as, you know, causes terror when this one causes fear, so it's kind of next step up. You know, just put them above it. Honestly, they're not different. The Feral Wyvern, not the Manicore, right? Feral Wyvern. I kind of don't like these guys because, like, when these guys goes feral in the middle of the, you know, your battle, it could kind of bite you depending what unit they bring. They're your only flying unit in the Greenskin roster. They're kind of expensive as well. I mean, they do have the cause fear, cause terror, armor piercing, as well as the poison attacks. I kind of find them disappointing. There's some cases where they can kind of carry you, other cases where they kind of screw you over. It's just kind of a preference, in my opinion. Now, you got the Giant. This guy's pretty good. He's really tall, really slow, so he kind of opens himself up to artillery fairly easily. He is considered a wall break, causes terror, and really good weapon strength as well. I'm gonna put him at average because you can probably put like I would say maybe 2 units of like spearmen on him, and he'll kind of die. Fun unit to have. I don't think he's above average though because he's so tall and he's so slow. Next is the Super Squig, or what I call the Mama Squig, and she's pretty much just a giant squig. She does have once versus infantry, armor piercing as well. A blow apart, which is a vortex, which is enabled when the unit's dead. So you kind of want to send this guy in by himself if he's low on health, but he does go feral. A fun unit to have. I wouldn't really call this guy above average either. Just because you kind of get him later in the game, and I have mixed feelings about his performance. Sometimes he's above average, sometimes he does really good. It's arguable. Now the Ragnarok Spider, or Arcanok Spider, not Ragnarok. Whoops. He has, armor piercing, anti-large, poison melee, poison range, causes terror, causes fear, and lots of health as well. Less health than a giant. But, he has that speed and armor on him as well. So, kind of a trade-off. I personally think the Ragnarok or the big spider, maybe, I'm gonna kind of put him in above average, and there's a reason for that once we get to his variant that came out in the DLC for him. Next is the Mama Squig variant, which is the Acid Bubba. Better stats overall. Let's see here. He does have, yeah, it's the active ability is the 4 attacks. Wait, yeah, that's the new one. Geez. So it leaves a trail of explosions behind, which is armor, 50% armor piercing damage, as well as minus 15% speed and minus 8 leadership. Makes him a fun unit to have. Honestly, I would, put him above average kind of for that reason. Maybe even put him in A tier. Next is the Arachnarok Spider Flinger, and the reason why I didn't put this guy at A tier, A plus tier, is because he's a walking artillery piece with the same exact melee stats. He does lose 32 health. Not really sure why he loses 32 health. That's kind of weird, in my opinion. It does say he's anti-infantry, even though he's anti-large here, so that's just kind of weird. Did that one say that? That says anti-large too. So, I don't know if that's a visual bug or somebody did something wrong. But he has high missile strength, sticky webs, which is minus 25% speed, plus a figure per second, as well as armor piercing for that as well. So he's a walking artillery piece that actually moves pretty fast. And kind of for that reason, I'm going to put him at the A plus tier. I would argue that you could actually doom stack them. They're really expensive. They're really a pain to get the doom stack, but I think you could. I haven't gotten to that point in the campaign because I don't play Greenskins very good, but I think you could doom stack them. And next is the Rogue Idol. He's a very, very fat boy, but he's highly armored, high leadership, bonus versus infantry and armor piercing, and then he gets kind of stats as he gets hurt. So when his hit points is greater than 50% but less than 75%, he gets 40% more AP and minus 30 armor, and bombards the area around him. And then he gets another bombardment at 2, which is 80% armor piercing minus 60 leadership, or 60 armor. And then his final form, he gets 120% armor piercing and 90 armor, or minus 90 armor, and he rampages. And he also bombards multiple times. He does have the Spirit of Gork or Mork, which is base weapon damage plus 5%, armor piercing plus 5%, and leadership plus 4 for infinite amount of time. And it's enabled when he has greater hit points than 25%. That's called Spheres. Yeah, as well. Doomstack, I mean, he's really big, but you kind of have to have an army built solely with artillery pieces. Even the anti-large units have issues taking him down. Next is the Ragnarok Cream, which is just a regular spider variant between the two. Yep. Gets 200 ammunition, 100 range, missile strength is poisoned. Oh, that's not the same. Make sure these stats are right because they kind of one thing, they say another. Okay. Does get maternal instinct, unlike most others. People's mothers. Summons a unit of spider hatchlings. Good at defending her and degrade over time. She's a really good unit to have. I would put her at pretty much the A tier, kind of for that reason. And you got the Regiment Renowned variant of the Idol, which is called the Big Un. The only difference is he gets magical attacks, as well as the Rock Bottom, which replenishes ammunition, but also causes damage to himself. That's pretty good. I'm gonna argue against that, really. He also does have a range on him. He has 10 ammunition of magical attacks, which is armor piercing as well. If this wasn't a regimentary non-variant, I would, doom stack with him, but put him there. Next is the armored squig hoppers, which are just like the Night Goblin squig hoppers, except they got a little bit more armor, but a little less charge. This is a unit you can get from completing a WOG. This is the extended roster, so everything here you can potentially get from WOGs. I will say spider hatchling are kind of weird, though. You kind of need like a special building for that. Or it's also a unit factions or a faction ability. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this tier list, but you can in fact recruit them if you have that certain building. But yeah, armored squig hoppers. Where's your daddies at? I don't. I think you're up here, right? I would kind of just put these guys up here. They're the exact same, just a little better stats, except they're a little bit harder to recruit because you got complete WOGs. You got the lava spider riders, which just have the pretty much flame attacks, missile strength, fire resistance, which is really nice. That's the only stats that they have juiced up for them. Yeah, it is. So, oh, they do have armor piercing attacks too. Armor piercing, weapon strength, and missile strength. So that's good. I still kind of see fire attacks as a weakness in most cases, except they got armor piercing as well. I'll put them above the regular. I think they kind of disappoint in my opinion. Fire hatchlings are squig food. No reason to use them. They're already a trash mob unit when you got the goblins to do that for them. Not really worth it. I mean, unless you're building an army of just spiders, go ahead and do it, but no, not worth it. And next you got the Super Squig, which is a squig that is stuffed with gunpowder and essentially explodes. Just he's kind of like the bloated corpse from the Vampire Coast. I mean, he's fun to use, but I also don't know why they use that unit card either. That's just weird because you only get one. I don't like the sewer slider units like that because it just takes away from your roster. I mean, they're fun to use. That's about it. The Hydra, which is I think it's actually a wild Hydra. I mean, you also can get it for a Wyvern. So the Pharaoh Hydra has a fiery breath like dragons, which their use is regeneration. It also has more regeneration, which is just a passive on top of itself. So I don't really know how well that's actually stats. It does go feral though. I guess that just has super regeneration. Yeah, it has super regeneration. So they're kind of hard to kill. Kind of a pain in the butt. Problem is, it's a WOG unit, so I think it's going to be a little harder to actually get them. That's why they're not going to be at the A+ tier. If you can get them, recruit them. I believe this is a Dark Elf trophy. I might be wrong in that regard. Next is the Lava Ragnarok fighter, which is not the flanger variant. Let me double check here. Not the flanger variant. Okay. Which pretty much the exact same, except it has the fire attacks as well as the armor piercing missile strength, as well as bombardment. Bombard the area around the caster, most effective when surrounded, and ignores armor. Really good. They're also anti-large and armor piercing. They do got the fire attacks, which I still feel debuff personally, but that kind of AoE bombardment's really good. If you can get them, or you can recruit them, keep them in your army. And that's the overall Greenskin unit roster. Kind of summarizes overall. They got hard hitting infantry, I would say. Kind of weak-ish range in my opinion. Mixture of really good cavalry across the board and really good monsters and squigs or super squigs. I gotta say this is a faction I kind of struggle to use because they have so many different utilities available to them. They're not like the Empire where you know, jack of all trades, not good at one thing in particular. It's just kind of a mess, in my opinion. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for notification when I go live, upload a video, or do any other shenanigans. And of course, hit that bell to actually get notified when I do shenanigans on YouTube. Of course, if you have any different opinions on like where these units go, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to discuss that with you. Anyways, bye.